Hi, Nick. What's up?
I've got a awesome guest on this podcast episode, and it's Nick Townsend, otherwise known as Nick Critic. And I just wanted to have him on for a discussion because we always get into these great discussions about films and TV and music, and I really feel like his voice just doesn't get out there enough because he's got a great articulation of, just people that work in the industry around it, like the producers and the directors and everything, like the actors and everything. So it's just wanted to get him on to talk about some cool topics. So I thought, it's kind of brainstorm with. I thought, come on the show and we'll talk about a few things. So I thought about a topic that we could kind of discuss is actor directors. And actors, directors sometimes aren't always actors, but sometimes actors can be directors. And so I just kind of wanted to explore some of the aspects of people that may have just gone straight to directing afterwards, or directed just for a piece for themselves, and maybe even did it just kind of like in a series of them. Some of them just kind of do like a one-hit wonder thing, like, I just directed once. But anyway, I just wanted to bring on Nick to kind of discuss some of that stuff. So welcome on, Nick.
Thank you so much, Rob, for that wonderful introduction. I hope I live up to it, man.
Yeah,
great.
absolutely.
Thank you.
So, I thought, I guess, just to kind of dive into, because I was, we were kind of brainstorming on like a list of different ones, and we can kind of go through a good bit of them as we go through the show. But I guess maybe to start off with, there's one famous one that kind of did a combination of maybe things that sometimes he's not in. I think a lot of times where he is in the project, but went from actor to being a director more, especially later on in life, and that's Clint Eastwood.
Oh, definitely.
So I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on, of course, we're not going to just sit here and talk about Rawhide for 10 minutes.
Oh,
but,
God,
no.
No.
So let me get your thoughts. Just maybe discuss a little bit on your thoughts on maybe Clint Eastwood as a director, or maybe even just an actor, or both, or...
Yeah, Clint's been around. Yeah, he's started directing with 1971, I believe, Play Misty for Me. Really good thriller, but he had obviously, he had been acting for quite a number of years previously. I mean, of course, you had Rawhide, and he also had, his films with Don Siegel, and with Sergio Leone, the Man with No Name trilogy, of course. So by the time that he got to do his directorial debut, Play Misty for Me, he had the help of Don Siegel, whom he had worked with previously.
So you think like Don Siegel was kind of like his...
Oh, he was his mentor, definitely. And he was on the set. He gave him a cameo in the film, and Jessica Walter is in it, of course. She's the... Play Misty for Me actually kind of set the template in a way of the the basic instinct, Fatal Attraction of the that type of thriller. It's a great film. And then of course, he went on to, he's in that, of course, he's the lead in that, and he's also the lead in his second film, High Plains Drifter. Wasn't the lead in his third film though, Breezy. That went to Bill Holden, of course. And then we go on. There are many different aspects of Clint's career post 1971. Once he started directing, he's directed a number of films since. So, of course, you've got the classics like Unforgiven, and then he did the one. He's famous for Dirty Harry. The one Dirty Harry film he directed was the fourth. Sudden Impact. And, he had that period in the 80s. I think he had Pale
Was
Rider.
that Go Ahead, Make My Day, by the way?
No, that was the first one. John Milius wrote that line, by the way. No, that he directed the one with, it's in the... That's Go Ahead, Make My Day. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, Go Ahead, Make My... Yeah, that's right. Excuse me. I thought, yeah.
I was just
The
checking. I was
third one.
curious.
You're absolutely right. It was Sudden Impact was Go Ahead, Make My Day.
Go ahead.
So he helmed that one, but he's gone on and done a lot of award-winning films since then, and and he's performed in a lot of them, and I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah,
has he mentored anybody that's gone on?
Oh, I'm sure. He's worked over and the man as of this moment is in time is still alive. So, and he has had a long filmography. Worked with a lot of talented individuals as well. So, I'm sure a lot of people who were actors as well as directors. I know Bradley Cooper. He was in one of his films before he helmed his own picture.
Yeah. I was trying to think of, I thought there was somebody else that he kind of took under his wing, in a sense, not like in that realm, but no, but let's talk about some other ones. Actually, to kind of maybe take it back a little bit, it was interesting to note that Charlie Chaplin was kind of one of those first almost rock star level kind of fame as an actor, at least, and then somebody that kind of went into directing pieces later.
Yeah,
whether successful or unsuccessful. And actually formed United Artists, I think, in 1920 or 1918.
Yeah, he and Mary Pickford and a few others, they created United, or they pulled together and that's how United Artists was born. United Artists was actually a company that was, it was one of those. It became increasingly successful as the years went onward from the time it was conceived, and it released a lot of great films. But it met its ultimate demise with the production of Heaven's Gate in 1980. That one, with the failure of that.
Really?
Which, by the way, actually, from what I've heard, and I really want to watch Heaven's Gate. Actually, I've heard a lot about it, and it cost a lot of money, and it basically closed the entire, and there was a lot of independent filmmakers that got a shot, at Stallone, he got his big, Rocky was released by United Artists.
Really?
Yes, it was in 1976. In fact, I believe the big picture at that time was Scorsese's New York, New York, which was like his musical. This was his follow-up to Taxi Driver, which had won the Palme d'Or, the top prize at the Cannes Film Festival of 1976. So this was his big budget. Now, it's this eagerly awaited film, afterwards. And, it's... I don't know. It's all right, man. It's okay. It's got De Niro in it and Minnelli, and its failure sent Scorsese in a bad period. But he eventually found himself again with Raging Bull.
So he did Heaven's Gate?
No. Michael Cimino did Heaven's Gate, but it's because of Michael Cimino's the failure of Heaven's Gate that I think Scorsese once said Raging Bull came out in December 1980, and when Heaven's Gate opened and failed, they closed as well with it, the distribution of such, because they were in United Artists. So that Heaven's Gate closed that chapter of the director as author, kind of the auteur theory, where they got they were saying they were going out of control. I'm sorry, they were going out of control with the budgets and all sorts of things like that. But no, the thing about New York was that was the thing that the producers were like, that's what we're betting money on, is this big musical. And at the same time, they've got this little scrappy independent picture that this kid from New York wrote. Sylvester Stallone wrote Rocky, and it was super low budget. It was just like and it comes in and makes a lot more money than New York does. Let's just say that. They recouped their losses, I guess. But United Artists was a great place for a lot of those guys. De Palma, Carey came out with United Artists. I can list, Cuckoo's Nest.
Who bought United Artists? Who bought the assets?
I
Do you
don't
know?
I'm sure the name is still around. So, but I don't know what happened to it.
I was kind of curious if you knew, who ended up. It's kind of interesting, when they have those. Who takes? You remember Orion Pictures?
Oh, definitely.
Oh, man.
Definitely. All those logos, New World Pictures, Orion, the old Warner Brothers logos, and
Especially in the 80s.
oh, definitely the
80s
the old Warner Brothers logo is one that I still see all the time. I think it's come back. It's reused in Todd Phillips reused it in Joker. That's the old 70s era Warner Brothers opening of that where it zooms in towards the screen.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah, I think a lot of those things have, with certain filmmakers, have gone back, but it's a good thing. They bring back some of the things they remember from their childhood, or when they watch those movies, and it's pleasant seeing them again sometimes.
Yeah, get that little nostalgia hit.
Yeah.
So I mean, I was trying to think. There's somebody in that mix, I think, that you were talking about that I was just like, has Robert De Niro ever directed
Yes,
anything?
he has. You know what? I almost thought about that.
Because I didn't want to just go into Robert De Niro necessarily, but it just kind of made me think for a minute.
Here all day. No, he did direct a film. It was called The Good Shepherd. I actually saw that in theater. In the
Good
theaters
Shepherd,
when it
that
came
sounds
out.
familiar.
I don't really remember anything about it. It was a long time ago. It didn't stand out, really. I'm sorry. I have no idea if it still holds up today, or if there's been a reevaluation of it or not. But it's definitely not one that I would mention along with other actor-director films. I don't know if he's even the lead in it. I think he just has even a small scene, a cameo.
That's
appearance.
interesting.
Yes, but he has. It was, and I remember seeing it on the big screen, but I don't remember what it was about.
Of course, we talk about the transition people, and the most famous one I think is the Ron Howard story of just going from this child actor, and even just an adult. We could say an adult actor in a sense, but just going from that first movie in Roger Corman,
Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on kind of Ron Howard from that early point.
Oh yeah. So let's see if we can put this into context. I guess Ron Howard had been a child actor, of course. From the as Opie on the Andy Griffith Show, and then he went on when he was a teenager to be in Happy Days, and he was also in George Lucas's second film, American Graffiti. But he had also, at the same time as he was doing Happy Days, he did a film, I think, for Roger Corman, and called Eat My Dust. And Roger Corman, of course, a lot of famous filmmakers got their start through the Corman School. But the Corman School, man, there are so many.
So it's like Ron Howard knew back then to go through Roger Corman in order to kind of.
Oh yeah, I think he was acting.
Chance.
He was. Yeah, no, I think I can't remember if he wrote. He might have. No, he wrote the film. He was in Eat My Dust, and then he really wanted to direct because he figured if I make this one movie, I can use it as a calling card. I can make something else basically, and he needed that stamp basically on his resume that said I directed a film. So he went to Roger and said, "Can I do it?" And he had his certain criteria that had to be met, and Ron followed along with that. It's the only film I believe. I mean, I could be wrong, but I believe it's the only one I can think of where he is the actual star of the film, co-lead of Grand Theft Auto.
Oh wow! No. What about American Graffiti? Right? Wasn't he in that?
Yeah, he was in. That was George Lucas back in '70. Do you know that was filmed 50 years ago? This summer it was 50 years ago in the summer of '72. That's wild, just like half a century ago. So, but yeah, Ron Howard's in that. It's really that's a good one. I like that one a lot. It's a George Lucas movie. You got THX, you got American Graffiti, and then you got.
It's cool that it's like a nice period piece. Like he does a really great job. Like
yeah, that was Francis Ford Coppola's challenge to him after they did THX and it tanked. He said, "Why don't you try to do something warm and fuzzy?" And so he did, a character piece. And it was really good. It got a lot of young actors at the time that hadn't been, noticed, and they got their start through that film as well.
Yeah, it's like Harrison Ford.
Mm-hmm. Harrison Ford, Richard Dreyfuss, Cindy Williams.
What's his name? Charles something?
Charles Martin Smith.
Charles Martin Smith.
He's also a director.
Yes. Yeah, he did like Vamps. Was that him?
I think so. I know he became a director, but
he did something like really weird, like in the 80s, I think.
Yeah, I think it was like Trick or Treat or something like
that.
No,
Trick or Treat. That's what it was.
It's like an 80. Yeah,
I think it was Trick or Treat, dude. Yeah. No way. I'm glad you said that because I was like, first I said Vamps, but
that was so obscure though.
yeah, no, it's still, but it's so weird to think about like 80s. I guess we're going to stay on the actor director thing, but like. Just like independent 80s movies, like just these forgotten films that like had like just these little
my favorite
budgets.
I was gonna say after Grand Theft Auto, one of my favorites, not my favorite.
Oh yeah, let's go back to Ron. My bad. I don't know.
No, you're good. My favorite, his follow-up, his second movie, his big budget first movie was Night Shift. It's one of my favorite 80s movies. I mean, you got
Night Shift.
You get his buddy Henry Winkler, who's always a delight. You get him playing against type as Fonzie at the time. I think this is towards the end of the run of the show. And Ron had already left, but Henry was still hanging in there. And during the winter of 81, 82, they went and they filmed in New York. Well, I think mainly in Los Angeles, probably to accommodate Henry's schedule too. But you got Michael Keaton just bursting out of the gate with that just manic energy, that wild man energy. It's just intoxicating to watch sometimes.
Yeah.
He's hilarious. Shelley Duvall's in there pre-Cheers, I believe, at the time.
Wow.
And but that's like, and then of course he went on and he did Splash and Cocoon and things like that. Parenthood.
Yeah, that is Ron Howard. Splash.
He did Splash.
And he did Cocoon.
Willow, and he did Parenthood is a favorite of mine. I love Parenthood.
I didn't know he was going that hard in the 80s. Like I knew he was going hard, but like, man, like that was a lot of good stuff right there.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially in the 90s, like...
Oh, yeah, Backdraft and...
Backdraft?
Yeah, he did Backdraft.
What?
Yeah, that would just blow your mind. Yeah, he did Backdraft, he did Far and Away. Parenthood is one I like. Then, of course, you get into the mid-90s, like Apollo 13. And
that's really when Ron Howard just starts going, like, I need the block...
He's getting the budgets.
The blockbusters.
Got the budgets, but I think this is the time where it's like, you're starting to kick into...
Well, he had Cocoon money, but
yeah, I guess it just
have,
ebbs and flows.
But Cocoon wasn't like, because Saving Private Ryan was Ron Howard, wasn't it?
No, that's Spielberg.
Oh, darn it. Didn't he do a war movie, though?
Ron Howard?
Yeah.
I'm sure he has.
There's Apollo 13. I thought there's another Tom Hanks thing or some sort of, not Saving Private Ryan, but just like,
Tom Hanks war film. I'm not sure.
I should have his discography in front of me.
I'm sure, like after this, it's gonna pop in our heads. We're gonna be like,
it'll happen later. But anyway, that's for anybody like watching the video or listening to the show, whatever you want to call it. But put in the comments if you know that
one doesn't come to mind as readily as I'd like it to.
Yeah, readily is that?
Yes,
you know what I mean. It's one of those. At 1853, it's blah 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 blah.
Yeah,
or whatever they call it.
But yeah, he got to start from the Corpsman School. I don't know who else. Who else do we get from the Corpsman School? I mean, of course, you get you got your comedy directors, you got horror directors, you got all different kind of actor directors that fill different genres.
I want to bring up one that was kind of, I guess, kind of current or whatever. And I haven't seen enough of his stuff to really form a huge opinion as far as the work, but just on the surface of it, like Jordan Peele.
Oh yeah,
from Key and Peele, like just the fact that like he went from, because when I started like, because I wouldn't say I was like, oh yeah, I was a huge fan or whatever. I mean, he was great. I thought I think, and not to get off topic from the actor-director things, but just as Jordan Peele or whatever, but Mad TV had great writing and just fun sketches in the 2000s, in the mid-2000s, whatever. And whenever Jordan Peele was on, too, was a great time. And I think he was on at the same time. It's obviously how they started working together. But it was like Jordan was silly and doing a lot of great comedy stuff. And then for him to come along later after Key and Peele or whatever, and then say, I'm doing, horror, political conscious, movies, and not even really be in them or anything like that, just strictly directing. That's kind of fascinating to me.
Yeah, I know. There are a lot of directors who usually, I think Sean Penn is a director until recently. He only wrote and directed his own films, but didn't appear in them. It's not anything new. Like the same with, like I was talking to you about earlier, was Terry Gilliam is a lot in common with Jordan Peele in that they began in sketch comedy. Of course, Gilliam came from Python, and he was the one who provided the linking material between the series and his animations. So his style is, even in his films, is bombastic and crazy. They've always been that way, even in the animations. His stream of consciousness and wild imagination have always been around. So, but I think I see what you're saying. It's like, usually you see someone associated with comedy, and then you see something drastically different to the genre.
Yeah, it's just fascinating to kind of see that stark contrast, especially in this other profession that they aren't necessarily assigned to, I guess, at the beginning or whatever. And everybody's more, and I think we should celebrate all these people for being able to be dynamic and be an actor as well as a director, and control that responsibility and provide a great product. So, I don't think what we're really providing here is any criticism. It's really just sort of like an analyzation and a celebration in a way. And there can be criticism too. Like, nobody, if somebody put out a bad product, I think you said De Niro's like Good Shepherd's like, eh. But, and that's to say somebody
even
done
with,
enjoy it too.
Before Jordan Peele, you had, Spike Lee also was performing in his own productions. You got Mars Blackman, and She's Gotta Have It, and you got Half Pint in School Days, Mookie in Do the Right Thing. He's also in Mo Better Blues, Jungle Fever, Malcolm X. He's performed in a lot of his he's been in there.
He's kind of like, what's interesting is his part is almost like the way he writes himself in is almost like Quentin Tarantino. In his parts, like they're like these little cameo. It kind of depends. Like he's done like Mr. Was he Mr. Pink or was he?
No, he was Mr. Brown.
He was Mr. Brown.
Yes, Mr. Brown, and he was Jimmy in Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
And he has a really awful Australian accent in Django.
Django, yeah.
He has a really, I don't know how I feel about it, brief narration cameo in The Hateful Eight. He's the voice of the answering machine in Jackie Brown. I know that's, if anybody's listening, that's a great film. Jackie Brown, check it out. He's not in it, ironically enough. That was like, he played Mr. Brown in Reservoir Dogs. He was Jimmy in Pulp Fiction, and then when it came to Jackie Brown, he was doing the story.
Okay, let's get you fixed up. Okay. But yeah, like no, that's really fascinating. Is that these little parts, because Spike Lee had just like these little parts too, right?
They were actually substantial. He's one of the, going back to his first movie, She's Gotta Have It, was an independent, low-budget, black and white film shot in New York City in the summer '85, I believe. Yeah, and he plays one of the three suitors of the female lead. So, they all have like episodic stories to them, and he's one of them. It's not a bit. It's not a cameo or anything. He actually has a substantial part, and he also has a substantial part in the plot of his second, and definitely in most definitely in Do the Right Thing. He's definitely.
This is an important character, and as well as the other ones too.
Other directors, though, of course, like if you can go either way. Like one person I didn't even mention, but because I could just mention it off my head. But it's like Scorsese is one that I didn't consider the same because he really just does like bit cameos, and the one part that most people remember him for playing was supposed to be played by somebody else. It was supposed to be played by George in Taxi Driver. Everybody remembers him as the deranged passenger, but originally that was supposed to be played by George Mamoli, who played Philbin in Phantom of the Paradise, always a cult favorite of mine. He was also the guy in Rocky, like the ice skate guy. He's like, "Hey, you two guys, get out of here." I forget the dialogue, but it's like, "Yo, time." That guy in the ice skating ring was the guy who was originally supposed to be the racist, cuckolded cab driver in Taxi Driver.
Oh my gosh.
But he got in an accident, and Scorsese stepped into the role. Most other appearances by him are cameo-like and are just basically sometimes in the background, even narration bits. But so I didn't think of that. But I'm trying to think of his contemporaries, and they did not perform at all. But then you got Woody Allen, of course, who always performed in his films as well. But if we're going to go in the comedy route, you got Mel Brooks.
But I guess it's really just sort of in a sense like the people that, because I don't know, would you consider like, it's weird because like there's people that just happen to be in their stuff to kind of fill that role maybe as an early independent part. Like I think of like Kevin Smith like being Silent Bob or something like that, or maybe making this kind of cameo thing. But then Woody Allen is like
the lead,
kind of the lead,
or he was
centerpiece, and or at least like an Annie Hall kind of deal. Like,
well, that's where he achieved his most of his success. After that, I mean, he got his Academy Award, so of course you're on everybody's radar. It's funny. There's the pre-Woody Allen movies, and then there's the post, or the pre-Annie Hall Woody Allen movies, and then the post ones. I don't really want to get into Woody Allen, man. I'm not. I was trying to say. Let's jump from Woody Allen. I'm not a big fan. I'm not saying he's awful or anything at all. I just have not. I haven't had. I'm getting to. I'm getting to him. In my own time.
Yeah, it's just, I just feel like that maybe the '70s stuff might be kind of worth popping into or whatever.
But I have seen
really
clips
connect with the
of
zeitgeist
things that were striking. So it just one day I'll get there. One day.
I just think generationally it just doesn't really like.
But I mean, if you're going to have like a comedy legend, directing and writing or co-writing and also appearing, sometimes as the lead, sometimes not. You got Mel Brooks.
Mel Brooks, yeah. And I was wanting to ask you, I don't mean to stop me on my thought, but I almost left my head. Continue and it'll come back.
Oh no, it's okay.
But you were saying like Mel Brooks.
Mel Brooks, yeah, and he was in obviously the lead in what was he was the lead in silent movie High Anxiety History of the World Part 1. He has parts in 12 Chairs and in Blazing Saddles, of course. He's the governor and an Indian chief.
But no, that makes sense because he was with Sid Caesar and stuff like that on TV.
Yeah, he was a writer for Sid Caesar, and so was Woody Allen. Both of them were. Or was it the Steve Allen show? It was either. I think they were both worked for Sid Caesar. A lot of talented people writers came from the Sid Caesar show.
Yeah,
and Mel was one of them, of course. He definitely has his own style, of course. Sometimes it's.
Do you see any like creatively artistic directors come from any actors that you think of, or that's just mostly like the storytelling?
Yeah, I mean, it just depends on it's weird because you have some that are like one and done that you would never even think were directors, but they do have one, and then some of them like that one and done like has been looked back and it's considered like, wow, they should have kind of kept on doing that. I mean, Charles Lawton was an example. He was a famous actor, and then he does Night of the Hunter, and it doesn't do well in its time, but it's considered a classic now. And then the same with lost me. I was just thinking about it, but it was just something that it didn't come out in. Oh, Marlon Brando. He did a film called One-Eyed Jacks that originally Kubrick was supposed to direct, but he.
How did he get anything done?
no idea.
He could barely function as an actor on.
Oh no, he wasn't. This wasn't Marlon in that time. This
wasn't Fat Marlon. This was
this was 1961. This is 10 years before The Godfather.
Okay. It's just so crazy how like Marlon Brando just went in like 20 years. Just
well, he could afford to be. You know, the thing. It's funny you mentioned that. Last night, I watched a movie that I'm not actually a big fan of, but it's okay. It's all right. Last Tango in Paris, which was the film that he did after Godfather, and it's crazy because most people when you see The Godfather, he looks so old in that makeup. Like Dick Smith did a really good job with the makeup because Last Tango in Paris is like the year after he did that, and he looks. I mean, he's in his 40s. If you see the movie, he's in his 40s, but still, I mean, it's like, oh my God, you see the difference in it. And there's one scene where he has a scene with his wife who's committed suicide. And this is at the beginning of the movie, so it's not like spoilers or anything. This is basically the way the plot kind of
give it away, y'all.
Starts. No, this is the catalyst for everything. It's like he's a man who married this Parisian woman. She killed herself, and he's in Paris, for the funeral. And he has this moment where he goes into, to speak with her. And it's just the rawest, it's a really good scene, but you can tell at one point, because he didn't like to do rehearsals, there's a point where he dramatically just looks up, and he would have, his cue cards taped across the ceiling. So, in fact, he was looking for his next line across the ceilings, but... Everybody has their own. Yeah, everyone has their own method. Some people argue that there's a problem with that, but I think if he gets the job done, I mean, it's a pretty intense kind of emotional scene for him.
It's kind of like karaoke lyrics splattered on the walls. Like, okay, I don't want to mess up this song, so I gotta make sure I land it.
Yeah.
Is it Begging for You, Girl? Hold on, let me look over at the kitchen. Begging for you, girl. But
you got like Rob Reiner. He was I don't know if Rob Reiner performed in any of his own films after his first, which of course is the classic. This is Spinal Tap, where he plays Marty DeBurgi, a composite of Martin Scorsese, Brian De Palma, and I think Michelangelo Antonioni. But
that's great.
He performs in that, but I think he stuck to his gun. He started directing from then on to, all sorts of classic films after that as well. So, I mean, you have the ones like Ron Howard, Rob Reiner. They had that. They started in that.
Rob Reiner, yeah.
And
what a career he had.
And his father also was an actor, Carl Reiner, but he mainly just stuck to directing. If he was in his films, it was like a cameo type role. It wasn't a lead role.
I think Rob Reiner's had more success as a director than he ever had as a...
as Meathead?
Yeah, amen. Because it really was just Meathead. I mean, he's not... I mean, of course, Rob Reiner's like, I'm more than Meathead.
Yeah, of course. But I mean,
as an actor, I mean,
that's where the world finally started to pay attention to Rob Reiner was through his initial success of All in the Family.
Exactly, which is a great show. I love it.
Oh, it is. Yeah, I mean, he had a good run.
What was that scene? Because he did a great job playing an average Joe type guy, and was it Sleepless in Seattle, or was it I thought it was Billy Crystal.
Might be.
I don't think it was When Harry Met Sally, but there was just like this scene where he was like going out with a beer or something like that with one of his, like, either Tom Hanks or something like that in that time, and I just thought like it was cool that he just kind of played like the friend, like average type, just kind of like,
yeah,
he did a good job kind of being relatable in that, so I thought that was kind of cool. So
yeah, that is another way that can be chilling in the same way as a director. Sidney Pollock, he was a director, and he was in Kubrick's last movie, Eyes Wide Shut, as a man with a lot of information that is kind of scary. It might be, a little nefarious. And that's another director in that type of situation, playing a supporting part in a film that's important to the story. But that role's chilling to me.
He said Sidney Pollock?
Sidney Pollock, yeah.
Oh, okay.
He did old Jeremiah Johnson.
Yeah, he had a great career as a director.
Mm-hmm.
But what's interesting is, not the side note, but it's just like, it's interesting to see these actors that were a producer on something and won an Oscar for it.
Oh yeah.
We brought up famously Michael Douglas for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yes.
Before even being really big as an actor. I mean, that was like 76. Like, I think of Michael Douglas really in like the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
As far as his visibility on camera, and just to kind of have that credits, like, before he even became like, what was it? It wasn't Indecent Proposal. It was
Fatal Attraction.
It was Fatal Attraction. What was the Demi Moore one?
Disclosure.
Disclosure. You just get stuff like that. It's like, that's the Michael Douglas,
the cheating husband, or the type of or The Game, things like that. No, he was
Falling Down.
Falling Down, Defense, yeah.
But I love Falling Down. But like, it's like interesting that he had that, and then like you look at Brad Pitt, dude, he got an Oscar for 12 Years a Slave.
He was also
Did you know that?
Yeah, he won that, and he was also a producer on The Departed as well. So I'm not sure if he got an Oscar for that, because I'm not. I know his name is on it as a producer.
Because there's a lot of people that won an Oscar for that one.
Yeah, it won the Academy Award. So yeah, you've got that. You've got Ben Affleck, who directed Argo, which won Best Picture. He got his Oscar for that one, but didn't get a Best Director nomination. He got one for producing it. So.
No, I thought he won an Oscar for Argo.
He did. He won Best Picture, which he produced. But
he got the picture, but he didn't get director?
Yeah, he wasn't even nominated for Best Director.
But he directed it?
He did.
Oh, okay.
And he was the star of it, too.
Huh. Was he nominated for...
Just picture.
Actor? Just picture?
I think so. And it won the picture.
And it won the picture. Wow. Oh, it's crazy that he didn't get the other, you know what I mean? Like, it was just the picture, whatever nomination, and then gets it. Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, his first movie he wasn't in. He cast his brother, Casey Affleck.
Because usually you get multiple nominations, like, on a film like that, don't you think? Like,
I'm sure it probably did.
I mean, not every time, but
I can't remember offhand. I just know that fact that, like, man, it's like, it's his big picture, and he didn't even get it. I think Tarantino had probably mentioned something in the press at the time about it, and that was just like, damn. Well, at least he got it for the picture, I guess. So.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, would that be his second because of Good Will Hunting? Or is like Best Picture? But I guess that would be Best Adapted Screenplay that they got.
Oh, yeah.
For Good Will Hunting?
No, it wasn't adapted. It was based... it was an original work.
Or Best Screenplay. I shouldn't say adapted.
No. They have two categories. They have the Best Adapted Screenplay and the Best Screenplay for,
Oh, okay. Yeah, so there's two of them.
There's two categories.
Okay, that's my ignorance. I was trying to figure out.
No, you're good. But it won for that of the category of Best Original Screenplay.
Best Original Screenplay.
Right.
But adapted would be like
if it's based on a book
or something like that.
Oh,
okay. Yeah. That's good to know.
Yeah. But yeah, you've got all those kind of guys who. It's curious enough, like, they direct a movie when they're not that they're not in. It's kind of it's basically like we're seeing what they can do as a filmmaker, or at least I do. It's kind of like, all right, you're not in it, so I'm basically showing me what you got. I mean, it's been around for a while. Like Jack Nicholson is a guy.
He did The Trip, didn't he?
He was a writer.
He was a writer.
Yeah, he wrote the.
I'm like one off. I'm like, he did da da da, and then he goes, no, he's actually da da da. I'm like, like yes.
He was he was in the Corman B pictures, and then slowly as he started, around the '60s, he became a writer, and he was working, on The Trip. He and Bob Rafelson, who just passed away, they started the Raybert, and they were involved in Raybert, and Jack and Burt wrote the Monkees movie Head in '68, and then after that, in '69, the same production company, they did Easy Rider, which Dennis Hopper directed, And he was an actor, you know, back in the 50s with James. He's in Rebel Without a Cause. He's in Giant. You know, he had been an actor around that time, and now he was, you know, with the counterculture and grew his hair long and everything. And so you've got, you know, Dennis Hopper and Jack Nicholson and Peter Fonda. They all get a, you know, all of them get a movie in 71, and they're all just like wildly different. You know, Nicholson does his like campus protest movie, Drive, he said, and then you've got Peter Fonda with his Western, The Hired Hand, and of course Dennis Hopper's The Last Movie. They were given free range to do whatever the hell they wanted. Nicholson of the three is the one who isn't in his first movie, and that movie is strange. I love it though. It's Drive, he said, it's just it's definitely of its time.
I wanted to ask you about, like, you know, I tried earlier a little to kind of figure out, I guess just your perspective on the directing as far as like kind of a creative director versus just kind of like the blah blah. Can you think of anybody that just kind of has that interesting, like, wow, I love the way that they capture angles and stuff like that, or do you think it's just sort of like straight? Because I don't see anything wildly crazy about a Clint Eastwood. I mean, and maybe that's a good thing, but there's nothing like, wow, that was just like...
Terry Gilliam, I mean, is one that I can think of offhand that's an actor, but he's not, you know, he's not in them. Yeah, like, I know what you mean. It's hard because you have to go into certain subcategories when you like, when it's like that. And I think it helps that Gilliam, he started out as an illustrator. So, I mean, he's capturing what's in his imagination on
That's
screen.
true. I'm thinking about Fear and Loathing and how creative that was. Yeah.
So it's different because he's not in those movies. Like, you know, he's fully behind the scenes trying to capture his world on the lens. But yeah, I'm trying to. I mean,
I think that's a good point. Even if he was in it, it's still trippy. You know what I mean? Like, so I mean, I try to, you know, give you credence for what you're saying as far as like, you know,
I mean,
just finding the actor-director that has that creative visual style.
Yeah.
Unquote. So, yeah, that's cool.
I mean, it even goes back. I mean, if you want to get technical about it, I mean, he is in Holy Grail, and he was one of the two directors along with Terry Jones. And that definitely has a visual style. In fact, they had to fight at the time for that visual style. They wanted it all nasty and dirty to counter the jokes with the realistic nature of the setting of the story. So, you know, he had a visual style even back then. I think Terry Jones concentrated on the performance aspect of the film, and Terry Gilliam concentrated on the way it looked.
Yeah.
It was presented. So he definitely has that visual style. But, I mean, others, I mean, I don't know.
Oh, we can actually...
Oh, Alejandro Yadorowski is one. I'm sure that's one that Evan would probably, you know, we could talk about. I mean,
Alejandro
Yadorowski. Yes.
Actually, I was thinking...
That's definitely a filmmaker that has a certain vision and does perform in them too. So, yes, that's one that another one I can think of offhand. Like the other ones, it's like, I don't know. I got to think about that one for a minute.
yeah.
And then you've got, you know, Tim Robbins. He did that Dead Man Walk. Or Bob Roberts. He did the movie Bob Roberts. I thought about that. I was like, didn't he do Dead Man Walking with Sean Penn and Susan Sarandon? You know, his wife at the time. So, and she won for that as well. But I think he wrote that and directed that. But he had also done Bob Roberts, which was this political satire back in the early '90s.
I think I remember hearing about Bob, because you keep saying Bob Roberts. I'm like, I think I remember Bob.
I need to check it out because I've heard so much about it and I just haven't seen it. It wasn't those movies that like came on like television. Most of the time, like what I was exposed to is where I kind of snuck in, but I would always see the image of it. I think at the video stores when I was younger, is an image of him standing with an American flag draped over him, just looking heroic out to the sea.
Yeah, take me out to see if I'm named Bob Roberts.
Bob Roberts.
I mean, it's tough just being Robert.
Bob Roberts.
Just one of them, let alone a double Robert name. Well, let's I think this would be a good place to wrap it up. I think the show's been awesome. I just want to thank you so much for coming out to Rob's Rave and doing a show with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. I hope you'll come back and do some more stuff with us, more skits and some podcasts in the future.
Absolutely. We can elaborate further.
Cool.